and welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today I am so excited to be introducing you our brand new stamp set, Tiny Friends, and its coordinating dies. So let's go ahead and check it out. This stamp set is filled with tiny characters so that you can stamp out your friends and family. I love these guys so much. They are so cute and fun. We have lots of hairstyles, different clothes, different ages. Oh my goodness, I love these grandparents. I mean, they're just so adorable and such a blast to use. I love that our furry friends are included with these guys as well. So now we're going to use some Copic markers to add color to these fun images. And I love coloring these guys as different people in my life. So I think of my friends and my family, and I try to color the characters like them. Another really fun thing to do is maybe to pick a favorite actor or actress that you like and try to color it as them. So it's really, really fun to kind of play around with different ways to add color to these cute little guys. I really love coloring in their clothes in bright, kind of bold colors. I think it looks really, really great, especially in the virtual friend set, and kind of that zoom theme looks amazing in the computer screen. These guys are pretty tiny, so I tend to keep my coloring simple with them, just using 2 markers for each color section. I think you could honestly even do just 1 marker for each one and they would still look really great. So you could create really simple coloring or mass producing with these characters too. Now these guys are the same size as our other tiny characters. So, we have tiny Halloween, tiny Christmas, tiny gingerbread, etc. They're all the same size. They're a perfect match for our virtual friend stamp set for that cool computer. You can also use them with the pop-up desk. They look great in the Car Critters car, and so many other ideas too. In this video, we're going to show you how to use them with the Virtual Friends computer, and the review wheel, and we're going to show you how to make a card that doesn't use Virtual Friends, that uses them on their own. So there's lots of cute and fun ways to use these. Now, typically when I use Copic markers, I lay down my lightest marker first, then I layer my darkest marker over it, go to medium to light from there. But these guys are so tiny that I didn't want to have my markers bleed out or just add way too much color to them. So I'm starting with my darkest and then going into my lightest. So dark and then out to light, dark and then to light. And that's all I'm doing. So it's really quick and easy, which is great, especially if you want to color a bunch of different characters and friends. But it just makes it a little more simple, and it makes it so that you don't end up having the markers kind of get too muddled, or you kind of lose your shading in such a small area. And here are all the tiny friends all colored in, and they are so adorable. I love them so much. And so we're going to take the coordinating dies for this set, which we can bend apart at the tabs or use our wire snips to separate. We're going to take those dies and line them up with our stamped images, hold them in place with some low tack tape. Then we'll run them all through the die cut machine, and we'll have perfectly cut out images that are ready to add on a card. And here you can see all these adorable little characters cut out. Because their hands are all in different placements, you can do some pretty cute things with them. So these little girls here can high five. The grandparents can hold hands. They can hold hands. I think it's so sweet and cute. And I wanted to show you that I went ahead and colored and cut out my whole family. So there's me and my husband, our son Miles, and then our dogs Daphne and Mo. And how cute is that? How fun would it be to make a card that said thank you from our family, or sending hugs from our family? So sweet. For our first card, we're going to be recreating a card by Elise. And this is so cute because she had the little grandparents in the computer and it's adorable. And I wanted to show you two ways of using the Tiny Friends with the computer from Virtual Friends. So in this case here, we're using the characters that have been die cut and I'm just trimming off the bottom of them and then layering them into the computer. So this looks really, really cute and it's awesome. And I love the layered die cut look because they kind of pop off the screen. I mean, oh my goodness, how cute are they? Okay, so the other way is to stamp them directly into the screen. So I'm going to stamp out the computer and I'm just going to add some quick color with some gray markers to that computer. And then I'm going to take some Post-it note tape. You could use just actual Post-its. And I'm going to line them up with the edges of the computer. And I'm leaving a little bit of that black line exposed. I'm kind of putting the tape right in the center of that black line. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my characters. So I'll stamp our grandpa here. And then we can stamp grandma. And so this is just a more flat one layer look. You also have a little bit more space because you don't have the white line of the die cut. So I'm able to kind of put them in a little bit closer to each other as well. So now we can peel up that Post-it note tape that we used as our mask and you'll see that they're perfectly stamped in the computer. Then I'm just going to use a really light blue-green marker to color all around them. You could use a different marker, but I really like this one because it's going to let my characters pop. I went ahead and colored in my grandparents in the same way as we did with the die cuts, and now you can see the comparison between the two characters. Now, just to add a cute little extra touch here, I loved how Elise did this. There's a little tiny heart in the Virtual Friends set, and we're going to go ahead and stamp that in with some guava ink. I'll quickly die cut the computer there that I did one layer stamping with, and then here's the comparison between the two options. So I love both. I think they're both great. I think this time I'm going to use the die cuts because I like how the grandparents are really popping off the screen with those die cuts. Next, we're going to use some of the brand new textured dot cardstock. I love this cardstock so much, and we're going to be cutting it with an outside-in stitched rectangle, the largest one. And so what I like about this is it's going to be kind of a subtle wallpaper, let's say, in the background of our scene. So we're also going to die cut some white cardstock with the same rectangle and some of our wood grain cardstock as well. And then we can trim down those wood grain and white pieces. So we're going to trim it down to about 1.5 inches and then about 1/4 inch for the white piece. And that's going to become our little baseboard, but the nice thing is by die cutting them all with the same rectangle, they're all going to have the stitching all around, which is going to give it a really nice finished look. I went ahead and stamped and colored some more images from Virtual Friends. So we have that desk there, and then of course our computer screen that we worked on earlier. And then to help fill in the scene, I'm going to bring in a couple of other little things. And I love this Simply Celebrate Summer set because it has the cutest little plants in it. And you can just trim out the plant from that whole row of them, and you could trim out a bunch of them and make a bunch of different cards with those cute little house plants. I've added foam squares to the back of all of these images and we're going to start layering them into the scene. Elise included these really cute little speech bubbles in her cards, and I decided to use the speech bubbles from gnome and Superstar, but we have a ton of stamp sets with these little speech bubbles. So look through your stash, see what kind of tiny little speech bubbles you might have, and it's a great way to do this idea. So the Miss You here is stamped from the stamp set, and then we're going to take the hi from hi there and stamp it in the tiny speech bubble. So I'm just going to take a piece of Post-it note tape to mask off the word there. I'll ink it up. I can remove that tape, and then now just the word hi is inked up and I can stamp that right into that little bubble. I also happen to have the Bubbles of Joy stamp set on my desk because I was creating with it earlier, and there's these cute little hearts in that set as well. So I went ahead and stamped and colored those, and we're going to start layering these images onto the card. We're going to use some foam squares for those cute little speech bubbles, which is honestly I think what makes the whole card. I just think they're so cute. And then we're going to add our little hearts kind of floating up out of the screen. For this sentiment, we're going to combine two different stamp sets. We're going to use the Scripty Bubble Sentiments, but we're going to use the words not as bubbles. And so we're going to stamp out and color the word hugs. And so did that in kind of a cool gradient with some turquoise markers. And then we're going to use the Long Distance Hug stamp set. And so we're going to send using the Sending Virtual from that. And we're going to heat emboss that on some white cardstock. So I'm using my anti-static powder tool here, rubbing it on the cardstock so that the embossing powder will only stick to the sticky ink that we're using. So I'm going to stamp that right in that upper hand corner, and then we're going to sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder, and then we can heat that up with our heat tool. I'll trim it out with the paper trimmer, and I love doing this because it kind of reminds me of those old time like Dymo labels. So I think that looks really, really cute. And then we can attach these with foam squares. So I'm going to attach the sending virtual and then hugs. And I love how she has this kind of like diagonal feel to her card. I thought it was so cool. It was so much fun to recreate this card. So I'll add some tape runner to the back of this whole panel and then layer it onto a standard size 5.5 by 4.25 inch white card base. And I think that white card base just makes the whole scene pop. I'm just going to kind of shift my hugs there. I thought it was a little too high, so just putting it a little bit lower. And how fun and cute is this card? Oh my goodness, I just love it. That Elise is awesome. Now next, Shari is going to show us how to make a super cute card without using virtual friends with our cute little tiny friends.
So for the card I'm creating today, I'm going to be using the Tiny Friends stamp set along with the Long Distance Hugs stamp set for my sentiment. I've already colored and cut out the little people here using the coordinating dies. I'm just going to set those aside. And on this card, I'm going to be making sort of a gallery wall with a bunch of picture frames. So I'm going to be using the mini picture frames dies that you see here. I'm going to use the circle, the rectangle, and the oval, and I've already cut out all these frames from some colored cardstock. So I've got a guava, a cilantro, and a peacock. And then I'm going to use the Watercolor Wishes paper there to cut them out again and use those as the inside part of my frame. So when you use these dies, you get the frame and you also get the inside piece. And then I'm just taking my little people here that I've already colored and I am deciding which pairings I want. So for this one, I'm putting this little boy and his dog. And I'm just going to attach these right to that Watercolor Wishes paper that is my background. You could also create little scenes inside of these frames, but I was keeping this to be a quick and easy card. So in this pink circular frame here, I'm putting these two girls. They look like they're high-fiving, which I think is fun. And then in the oval, I'm going to turn it so it's vertical, and I'm going to put the grandma and grandpa. And I like that they look like they're holding hands. So depending on your placement of these, they could be high-fiving or holding hands. And I just think that's so much fun. Lots of possibilities. Then I'm going to pair up the frames that go with each of these backgrounds. And for my card base, I'm using some perfectly plaid paper. So I've just cut that out with a stitched rectangle, and I'm going to use some strong adhesive to put this onto my card base. And this is cut with the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles, so it's slightly smaller and you're going to get a nice white border around the paper. This kind of looks like the wallpaper of the wall that these picture frames are going to hang on. And now I can figure out the placement of my picture frames and where I want them. Now, it's not a true gallery wall because obviously we wouldn't overlap our frames if we were putting this on a real wall, but in the land of card making, we can do that. So I'm just placing these frames where I want them, and that's so I can work on my sentiment at the bottom. I'm going to be white embossing the scripty hugs from the Long Distance Hug stamp set onto some black cardstock. So I've already put my anti-static powder on there. I'm just going to stamp the sentiment with some clear embossing ink, and then I'll add that white embossing powder to it. I'm just going to heat that up with my heat tool. I've got that nice bright white sentiment, and then I can line up the coordinating die and die cut this out. So you're going to get that white sentiment with a black outline. You can see I've done it in mermaid cardstock to the left, but it just didn't pop as much as I wanted it to on my card. So I'm changing it to the black. I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue to the back of this die cut, and then I'll just glue it down to the bottom left corner. I'm doing all this before I put my frames on there so that I can stamp the word sending on the background to make sure those frames were out of the way. And now that my sentiment is in place, I'm going to add my picture frames. So I'm starting with the green one here, and I've used my foam squares to kind of hold the frame and the background together. And these are thin foam squares, so they are half the thickness of normal foam squares. And I'm using that on the green one because these are overlapping a little bit and I want that one to be sort of behind. So for the other ones, I've used the standard size foam squares, and I've already put those on there. Again, using the foam square to hold the middle and the frame together. And then I can just layer this right over the corner of that green one. And then of course I'm going to do the same with the pink one here up at the top. You can actually see I put a thin foam square where I know that this is going to overlap on top of the green so that it is all nice and level and I don't get a bump where the two frames overlap. So now that I've got all my frames in place and the card basically done, I am just going to add a little bit of embellishments, and I've got these tiny hearts cut from black cardstock, and I really like the look of those black embellishments just sprinkled around. It just really adds a little bit more to the card. So I'm just adding a dot of liquid glue and adding these little black die cut hearts. And then my card is all finished, and I just love this gallery wall of all the family portraits. I just think it is so much fun.
Now it's time to make a reveal wheel with this card. And so we're going to take that reveal wheel add-on, the rectangle add-on, and we're going to drop that into the square reveal wheel add-on and then run that through the die cut machine with some of that cool textured dot cardstock. We're going to pop that window out and run it out with some of the brand new Nadia Perfectly Plaid Remix paper. I'm going to trim that down to be 3/4 of an inch high and then adhere it down to the bottom, and that's kind of going to be our cool patterned carpet there that's going to go under our desk. Then next, we're going to take our computer screen and our desk and adhere those on. And if you haven't checked out the Virtual Friends video yet, make sure to check it out because there's a ton of fun tips and tricks with how to use this set and how to use it with and without reveal wheel. Next, we've die cut the main wheel from the reveal wheel out of some white cardstock, and we're going to be using the templates for the rectangle window add-on to help us do our stamping. So I'm just going to take some Post-it note tape and hold that template in place on top of my wheel. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp the open 4-square grid there from the Virtual Friends stamp set. And then in the next window, I'm going to stamp one of the Tiny Friends characters as if she's got her close-up, right, like it's in speaker view. And then Virtual Friends has some great sentiments that fit really wonderfully in these little windows, but I thought it would be fun to create a thank you card. I need some thank you cards. So I went ahead and stamped the many thanks from the original Reveal Wheel sentiment set. So I love that this older stamp set from a couple years ago is a great match to our brand new Tiny Friends and Virtual Friends. In the Virtual Friends video, we showed you this extra little template piece that I absolutely love that easily masks off the 4-square grid so that you can add your characters into them. So I'm masking off each section and I'm going to stamp our cute little tiny friends in them. So you can see here that I'm lining it up so that the black line is kind of inside just a little bit of our little window that we're looking through. So we can see that black line, that looks great, and then we can go ahead and do our stamping. And I'm going to stamp the same little girl that we stamped in the big window here because I want it to be like a zoom 4-square screen, and then the big window is the speaker view, right? So I'm going to stamp her there. And then, of course, I had to stamp one of our furry friends. So we're going to stamp that cute little dog in the last window. I think that just makes the whole scene. It's just so cute and sweet. And now my favorite part is revealing the whole scene. So as I lift up the template, you can see how beautifully everything is masked and how well it's stamped. And look how cute that is with the little computer screen. So I colored in all of my characters, but they looked a little bit plain. I didn't want to add any color to their background because I felt like the card was really busy already. So what I did was I took a warm gray marker, a light one, a W1, and I lined the outside of each of my characters. And by doing that, you can see they just pop off the screen. It just adds a little extra something special, but it doesn't compete with everything else that's going on in the card. Now it's time to create our reveal wheel. So I have our main panel, the wheel we decorated. We have the base, which is that same panel cut without the rectangle window and that smaller base circle. We're also going to take out a mini brad and some foam squares, and we're going to take that mini brad and we're going to put it up through the smaller base circle, and then it's going to go up through our main wheel that we decorated. You're going to make sure that those prongs are going to open up right onto your decorated side, just like that. Then we're going to flip the reveal wheel over, and we're going to add some foam squares. So we're going to add those foam squares around the brad, but not touching the brad, onto that smaller wheel base. Then we can remove the liner paper and then take that wheel and line it up behind our computer screen. So I'm going to take that 4-square grid and just line it up so it's nice and centered. Hold that wheel in place and then line it up with that base piece. So we're going to line it up. You see I'm kind of getting on top of it, making sure everything's lined up well. I'm going to press down and now my wheel is attached to the base. We're going to add some foam squares all around the wheel but not touching the wheel, and then we can layer our cute computer screen right over top. And you can already see how cute and fun this reveal wheel is turning out. I just love it. Now for a little extra something, I'm going to add some cute hearts. And these are the hearts from the stitched journaling card. We have lots of little hearts in different dies, so you can find some there. And I'm just adding a little bit of liquid glue underneath each one and attaching them onto the card. I thought it added a little extra something, but the card looked really great without them too, so I could kind of take it or leave it either way. And then for our card base, I'm going to use some more of that textured dot cardstock. Look how pretty this color is. This is a 4-inch square, and we're going to layer that onto a card base. And then we can go ahead and start to layer our reveal wheel frame on top as well. So I added some foam tape to the back, and we're going to layer the reveal wheel on top. And then I used the little arrow die that's included in the die set to cut some of that same plaid paper, and then we can layer the arrow onto the card so that the recipient knows what to do. And this is kind of a fun card because the sentiment is a part of the reveal wheel. So there's no sentiment technically on the card until you spin the wheel and you get to that cute many thanks sentiment. So I think this is just so much fun. Especially right now, I feel like we're all doing Zooms and FaceTimes all the time, so this card is adorable. I just love it. Next, we're going to show you some super cute cards from the design team. And first up, we have the card by Elise that inspired us to make ours today, and this card is just so cute and sweet. And then I absolutely adore how Lynette put all of the characters into our speech bubble backdrop. They are a perfect fit for those little bubbles, and that card is just so sweet. And then here is the card that Shari created today in the video, and I love how she put them in those little frames. This card by Audrey is pure sunshine, and I love how the tiny friends fit perfectly in the Car Critters car. And then here I love how Elise combined our Village Heroes set with our cute little characters. So all of our little village sets are a perfect match for tiny friends. Maureen's card is so sweet and cute and colorful, and I love seeing all of those characters around the earth. That's so cool and fun. And then here, this card by Tammy is adorable. I love how she used the 4-square backdrop, and she has characters both in the screens and also in those speech bubbles. I think that's so much fun, and I can't wait to make a card just like it. And then here is a card by Rebecca showing our new pop-up desk and how those tiny characters fit perfectly in the laptop from that set. I can't wait to see what you guys do with Tiny Friends, so make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!